Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. A Heart of Ice and Ash. Episode 4. Chapter 43. Winter POV. It's been a hard few days, not going to lie, but I've settled into a nice routine of sorts. It's far nicer than being a slave, and apparently I get paid for it too. Maria sends me on an errand to take out bottled water to the training grounds, and I'm more than happy to do it. The sun is shining, there's a cool breeze that makes my hair whip around, and the grass is so green and beautiful. It's a perfect day to be outside. You should be a poet. That sounds so dreamy and romantic. Stick it, Sabriel. Stop making fun of me. The training grounds aren't far and I try to be unobtrusive, dumping the water and about to turn away when I hear his voice, one that sends shivers down my spine. I hadn't realized he was there. "What are you doing here?" he asks, sounding aggrieved. As if I'd gone looking for him. I was performing my duties, that was all. Clearly, he wasn't expecting an answer. I tremble as I realize everyone's eyes are on me now, looking me over with curiosity. So much for trying to have a low profile. Damn the man. Why can't he just let me go back to the pack house in peace? "Well, since you're here," Alpha Kai says as I turn to face him, "then you might as well join in on training," he adds, and I stiffen. Surely he has to be joking? Sabriel and I aren't really fighters, and I didn't have any experience with training. This would be my first time joining in on something like this. I eye the two currently sparring. They are in human form, throwing punches and kicks at each other, but it's not long until they've shifted to their wolf forms and begun to fight. I swallow hard. Their wolves are so much bigger than mine, and they know how to fight with their claws and jaws. I was going to be a goner, if I so much as stepped foot inside that ring. Did he know that? Was this some sort of form of entertainment for him? Or was this a punishment for merely being his mate and him not wanting me? Did he think this whole thing was amusing? "I need someone to spar with, Winter," he declares to the crowd as I flinch. I stare at him with pleading eyes, but he takes no notice. A woman comes sashaying out. "I can spar with Winter," she says with a smile, and I look at her helplessly. She's beautiful with her vibrant red hair and green eyes. She also looks friendly enough, but still, what was I going to do? It's not like I can communicate with her, tell her that I'm not capable of training. "Fantastic, Esm, get in the training ring," Alpha Kai says, and I sigh. This isn't going to be pretty. "Winter, you too," he added, narrowing his eyes. "Let's see what you're capable of." I scowl and walked extremely reluctantly into the ring. I'm trying to be as slow as possible, not really wanting to do this, but fearing, I have no choice. "Esm, you might want to show Winter some defensive moves." "I have a feeling she doesn't know much," he mutters, and I light up. Perhaps this won't be as bad as I feared. Esm is sweet, showing me several moves while Alpha Kai moves around and watches from a distance. I feel nervous as well as self-conscious. He claps his hands. "Now fight," he orders, and Esm launches herself at me. We go down and I kick and roll around, feeling like a complete moron. I swear she's going easy on me, and I thank God for that, getting kicked in the midsection and clutching my stomach in pain. Esm looks concerned but Alpha Chi merely looks bored and a little annoyed. Like it's my fault I don't know how to fight, it's not like I wanted to do this anyway. Esm helps me up from the ground and I look at her gratefully. Maybe now we could just stop the fighting and I could leave intact and in one piece? I'm already feeling shaky and embarrassed at my lack of prowess. I'm about to limp out of the training ring when his voice rings out. I think you should spar in wolf form. I go cold inside. My wolf is tiny, a runt compared to the average wolf. Sabriel has no chance of winning, let alone staying in one piece, no matter how much I love her tenaciousness and determination to win. Esm is also looking extremely reluctant as well. Perhaps she senses just how bad I am at fighting. Either way, it's clear neither of us want to do this. He doesn't seem to care. Both of you stay there. Esm, shift, I want Winter to dodge your attack while shifting simultaneously. I closed my eyes. I'm a goner. I might as well write my last will and testament now. We can take her Sabriel, I love you, but her wolf is going to be a lot bigger than ours. I'd rather run away. I'm not running away with my tail between my legs, it's undignified Winter. What do you suggest then? Well, if we have to lose, then let's lose fabulously. You're no help. We're so dead. Esm shifts into her wolf form and I stare wide-eyed, not just because she's large but because she's beautiful. She has silver all over, with the merest hint of white on her paws. She sits there and waits, patiently for the signal to attack. I so badly want to yell at Alpha Chi and something tells me, if I had a voice, I would have. How dare he do this to me? Part of me rationalizes that he has no idea of what he's about to do, but another part of me wants to scream at him and even hit him. I'm now that angry. Right then Alpha Chi says decidedly, Winter will shift when you attack and dodge. Is that clear? I'm shaking my head at him. I just want to go back to my Omega duties. He narrows his eyes at me. Maybe I should have been more clear, he says with gritted teeth. Neither of you has a choice. I want to see what happens and where Winter needs improvement, he adds. I wish I had the guts to flick him the finger. Smarmy. Esm moves her head. I wonder what will happen if I refuse to shift. Something tells me that it won't matter. He looks pissed now. I thought defiantly, facing Esm's wolf with trepidation. Now he booms and Esm leaps. I waver and he realizes, using his alpha tone, of all things to command me. Shift, he booms and I feel my body changing against my will. We're in my tiny wolf form and Esm has already leaped towards me. I'm just a second too slow as she tackles me to the ground, her claws ripping into me as I give a long howl, blood pouring out of my wounds. God, it hurts so bad. Esm backs away and shifts, trembling all over as she comes over to me. She looks over at Alpha Chi who's already racing into the ring. I'm sorry Winter, I didn't know, she tells me as I descend into darkness and gratefully go unconscious. My last thought is, I hope he's happy now. Kai's POV. I'm watching the training ring and some of my warriors sparring, correcting their moves every so often. It's boring and sometimes tedious, but I take pride in how good my warriors are, training some of them personally myself. An alpha needs to keep himself in shape, you know. Watch your stance, I roared to one in particular, watching with approval as they immediately corrected themselves. They know better than to talk back to me or ignore my instructions. I see something out of the corner of my eye and turn to see it's none other than Winter. What's she doing out here? I wondered to myself, feeling highly irritable. Omega's hardly stepped foot outside, unless it's for a good reason. I spot the water bottles and heave a sigh of relief. That's why she's come out then. Not because she's seeking me out. I pause to observe her for a moment. She looks so beautiful, even as pale and delicate looking as she is. I can't help but wonder what her wolf looks like and whether or not she knows how to fight. Well, there was an easy way to find out. I decide, ignoring my wolf who's protesting that this is a very, very bad idea. I need someone to spar with Winter, I asked the crowd, ignoring the pleading look in her eyes. This was for her own good, I tell myself. Esme volunteers to my relief and I order them both into the training ring, Winter looking very hesitant. Don't tell me she doesn't know how to fight at all? It's clear when they go at it in human form, that Winter knows absolutely nothing when it comes to defending herself, and I notice that she doesn't go on the offensive at all. Clearly, she doesn't like fighting. I don't like seeing our mate fighting. She's going to get seriously hurt, Kai. You should stop this. She'll be fine, Storm. She just needs more confidence. I don't think so, Kai. I really think you should stop this. I'm not going to Storm. She can start training like everyone else. I put up a barrier against my wolf and turned to view both of them. I want to see Winter's wolf and how she handles herself against another wolf. I stopped Esme and her from leaving. I want Winter to shift and dodge your attack, Esme, I say, and Winter looks decidedly nervous. I felt a pang of sympathy towards her, but waved it away. Everyone should learn how to fight. This would be a good lesson for her. Esme shifts and waits patiently for the signal, Winter shooting me covered looks as though she's trying to tell me something. Whatever it is, it's unimportant. But part of me is suspicious she's not going to willingly shift. Now I boom and Esme straight away leaps towards Winter, who is hesitating. Shift, I thunder, using my alpha tone, and watch as her body cracks and adjusts itself until the most beautiful wolf I've ever seen is right in front of my eyes. She's a runt. If I'd known that, I never would have insisted on her fighting. She's way too small to be able to fight back against a full-blown wolf. This must be why she'd sought help on my grounds from the rogues. Langdon, I grumbled to myself, he could have at least mentioned wolf was a runt to me. I watch wide-eyed, helpless to stop the inevitable, as Esme tackles poor Winter to the ground, her claws shredding into her skin and blood pouring out of the wounds around her. I'm already racing towards her, Esme looking like she's in shock, as I bend over and cradle Winter into my arms. God, she's so small, so frail looking. My heart skips a beat and bile rises in my throat. This is all my fault. I didn't know, she whispered apologetically. It's not your fault, I didn't know either, I told her, looking down at Winter, who was unconscious. I start walking towards the hospital, my heart thumping wildly in my chest, sparks sizzling where our flesh is meeting. No doubt the work of the mate bond. Thank God the hospital is close by and I raced through the front doors, to be met by a frazzled doctor. Dr. James is one of the best and this is a shifter hospital, so I don't have to worry about protecting her identity or anything else. He's discreet as well, always a bonus when you're an alpha in need of keeping something secret. What happened? He asks as he leads me to an empty room. He motions for me to place her on the bed. I place her down gently, feeling immensely guilty, seeing blood on my clothes and arms from her wounds. She was sparring, I said quietly, avoiding his gaze, and got injured. He looks suspicious. Sparring wouldn't normally cause wounds this deep unless it got out of hand, he says, prodding. I exhaled. I ordered her to shift and didn't know that she was a runt, he explained as he harumphs at me. I'm assuming she shifted before falling unconscious. I nod. I don't think Winter was even aware she'd done it. It had taken all of my self-control not to look down at her body. He begins to examine her wounds, frowning in concern. They're quite deep and will take some time to heal, but she also appears to be malnourished and dehydrated as well. Is she not getting enough food? I flush. I would have no idea if she was eating properly or not. I didn't tend to check on the omegas. I would have to ask Maria if Winter had been stopping to have breaks. Now I feel even bad. Winter didn't deserve this, any of it. It was my cowardice and not wanting a mate that had led to this. Well, I can definitely build up her strength while she's here, Dr. James mutters, still examining her and checking her pulse, but when she goes back, you'll have to ensure that she continues to eat and drink. I will, I told him firmly, meaning every word of it. He stares at me for a minute and then gives a slow nod. How long will she need to stay here for? I asked quietly, and he thought for a moment, his eyes piercing into mine. Does he know that she's my mate? He couldn't, could he? A few days. The wounds will take a day or so, but I want to keep her and get her eating well before she leaves, he tells me calmly. I nod. Keep me informed as to her condition, I said, turning around and about to leave. Alpha Chi, Dr. James says, stopping me in my tracks. It's plainly obvious for everyone to see that you're mates. Do you not want to stay with her? He sounded puzzled. I flinch. I can't afford to stay with her, not when Candace is still my girlfriend. I haven't accepted her as my mate, I growled. Please don't tell anyone else. He looks mystified but nods his assent, and I leave the building, my thoughts full of Winter and how pale and fragile she looked, lying on the hospital bed. Winter POV, where am I? I'm slow to open my eyes, feeling pain shoot through my body with every movement. I stare at the whitewashed walls and the hospital gown that I'm wearing. What happened to me? Kai has a lot to answer for, I grumble to myself, annoyed. We lost the fight with another wolf. Don't you remember, Winter? Ouch, guess that's why I'm in so much pain. We look good in a hospital gown though, totally rocking it. You always look on the bright side, Sabriel. Guess what? Kai was the one who brought us here. Don't get your hopes up, Sabriel. He only did it because we needed medical attention. I told her bitterly. After all, he's the reason we've ended up in the hospital in the first place. I blink against the bright light and try to sit up, causing machines to start beeping. A man in a white doctor's coat comes running in, stopping short as he sees I'm awake. I looked at him hopelessly and motioned towards the machines with an apologetic glance. Calm down, he murmurs to me, and I stop wriggling around. Let me get those needles out of your arm, he adds, and I flinch as he begins to do just that. God, it stings. Sorry, he apologizes. I just nod. I want out of this place. The sooner the better. Besides, I have Omega duties to take care of. I read his name tag. It reads Dr. James. He seems like a nice doctor and I relax somewhat. At least he has a good bedside manner. Winter, he says quietly, do you know where you are? Do you remember what happened? I nod. It's not like I can actually say the words. He looks thoughtful. Alpha Chi did say you were mute, he mutters, so I guess I'll have to do all the talking, he adds with a smile. I need you to stay for the next few days, he explains. Not only were you injured while sparring, he coughs, but you're severely malnourished and underweight. Do you remember to eat while doing your Omega duties? He asks quietly. I stop and think. It's true, I do tend to forget to eat while I'm working, most of the time, because I just want to get my work over and done with. But I hadn't quite realized just how many meals I'd been skipping until now. Maria was going to have my head when I got back. I shake my head at the doctor sheepishly and he scribbles something down on that clipboard of his. Well, from now on, you're going to be eating regular meals, he tells me sternly. I gulped at the serious expression on his face and nodded frantically. I really don't want to get on a doctor's bad side. There's something else I want to mention. He pauses and eyes me sternly. There are old scars all over your body that will have been made by silver. Can you tell me how you got those? He asks and I shake my head, very adamantly. There's no way I'm going to divulge how I got those scars. He seems to sense it too, because he gives a long-suffering sigh. There's someone that's been wanting to see you. If you don't mind, I'll inform them you're awake, he says gently with a sympathetic smile at me. What the hell's up with that? I brighten, thinking it's Maria that wants to see me. She's the only friend I've really made in the time I've been in the pack. How nice of her, I think, eagerly watching the doorway for her to come in. I'll be back later, Dr. James said, and I nodded, watching him go and waiting for my visitor. It's only a few minutes later and he comes walking in. What is he doing here? He doesn't give a damn about me. In fact, he's the very reason I'm in the hospital in the first place. I glared at him, even as Sabriel began to wag her tail in my mind. Where was the loyalty? My wolf was hopeless when it came to being in Alpha Chi's presence. I, on the other hand, despised him. I just want him to reject me and leave me in peace. I don't care how guilty he's feeling right now. Screw him. He looks hesitant as he comes into the room and takes in my appearance. I'm pretty sure I look disheveled, but what did I care? It's not like I'm trying to impress anyone. Especially not him. Winter, he says quietly, I came to see how you're doing. I look away. He comes in further. I should not have ordered you to train, he says, and I blink in surprise. Is the big bad Alpha actually apologizing? That's a first, I think sourly. If I'd known you were, well, a runt, he says, I would never have even dreamed of making you spar in your wolf form. I shrug and it seems to anger him, because his eyes flash. Good, I was pissing him off. Now he knows how it feels. I'm apologizing, he said tightly. Do you think you could at least do me the courtesy of looking at me? I stare at him and he softens, coming over and sitting beside the bed, putting his head in his hands and shaking it slowly. "What am I going to do with you?" he mutters, and I leave him be. Clearly, he's talking to himself. Was he losing his mind? Maybe all the stress is getting to him. Or he's feeling guilty. I'm guessing it's the latter. "I'm selfish," he murmurs, looking up at me, his eyes glinting. "I can't bring myself to reject you, but I also don't want to accept you as my mate either. I won't let myself be hurt ever again." He exhales, and I wonder what he's talking about. Am I the second mate he's come across? But if that's the case, what happened with the first one? Was that why he didn't want to be hurt again? What had they done to him, to make him so afraid of having a mate? Despite myself, I feel a tad bit sorry for him. It's clear how conflicted he is, but I'm the same. Part of me hates him for doing this to me, but part of me still feels the pull of the mate bond and wants to be near him. It was pure hell. He's eyeing me now, his eyes switching from black to normal, over and over again as I stare at him, fascinated. He seemed to be wrestling with himself. Then he stands up, knocking the chair over in his haste, his hand reaching out to grip my chin as I sit there, holding my breath. What does he want? "So beautiful," he mutters, and I watch, wide-eyed as he bends his head towards me and gently places his lips against mine. I jolt from the sparks, my lips opening eagerly to his tongue delving inside my mouth and caressing mine, his hands moving to the back of my head and gripping my hair. It's like a lightning bolt, shooting through me, and the sensation of him kissing me is pure heaven. He begins to kiss me even harder, and I move my hand to grip his hair, my mouth responding back just as hard against his. He lets out a long groan of pleasure and I find my hands moving up and down his arms. God, I want more, starting to feel my body responding, and I worry that he could sense my arousal. Then again, I see him, so I'm affecting him as well from the looks of it. Then, just as suddenly, he moves back as though he's been scorched. His eyes are wide and beseeching as he stares at me, taking in my swollen lips and disheveled hair. I'm confused. Why was he looking so angry now? He was the one who kissed me. I didn't kiss him, he started it. God, he chokes out, I should never have kissed you. I feel deflated. That's the very last thing I want to hear from him, and I feel tears forming in the corner of my eyes. He sees them and looks even more panicked. God, I'm so stupid, he mutters, backing away as I watch, my heart hurting. I can't believe I just did that, he says, swearing vehemently. I gotta go, he says, and I watch with tears in my eyes as my mate leaves the room, in a mad rush, as though he can't wait to get away from me. Could this day possibly get any worse? Kai POV. I can't believe I just did that. My mind whirls with the implications. I should never have done it, let alone even gone to see her. What on earth was I thinking? My wolf is pleased, sending me all sorts of naughty and inappropriate images in my mind, which is not helping with the situation. I can't stop thinking about that kiss. God, her lips were so soft and gentle, and those moans of hers. If I hadn't pulled back when I did, we would have ended up doing it on the hospital bed, and how embarrassing would that have been? Storm doesn't think it would have been embarrassing at all, the hornbag. I can't be near her, I decided. It was too dangerous to control my feelings when it came to winter. Even though she can't speak, she still draws me in. Something about those large eyes of hers that beseech me and make me feel. Even now, I bet she's hurt at me leaving. I swear there were tears in her eyes. Would you just accept the mate bond already and get rid of that slut Candace? She's not a slut, she's our girlfriend and I can't just upend her for winter. Remember, I don't want a mate that's going to hurt me like the first one did. She's not going to reject you. When are you going to realize that? Would you get over the scars you possess already? Winter doesn't seem to be bothered by them. That's because she can't tell me she is. I won't be put in a vulnerable position again. Candace just wants to be Luna, you know that as well as I. Stop being so blind to her. Shut it, Wolf. I won't break up with her, so just leave it. He sulks but shuts up thankfully as I head back towards the pack house deep in thought. I wasn't oblivious to Candace's faults, contrary to what my wolf believed. But shouldn't she expect to be Luna after dating me for so long? Wasn't that a normal thing to do? I could just mark Candace but my wolf feels sick at the very thought of it and I just feel hesitant, as though I'm forcing myself to do something I don't want to do. Why was this so hard? Why can't I just reject winter and get rid of all the drama? But she looks so fragile, so in need of protection and I feel protective of her. My wolf is just as protective and it's ironic, because he doesn't feel protective when it comes to Candace at all. Maybe I should just lock myself up in the study and bury myself in paperwork. That would take my mind off of everything surely. My wolf snickers. Sure, paperwork is really going to help. You try that, you moron. You're pushing it. So are you with this nonsense? You're a fool, Kai. The mate bond is only going to get stronger. I can't wait for the day when you realize just how stupid you've been. You're going to have a lot to make up for when it comes to winter and, at this rate, she might find a way of rejecting us. I've no sooner settled myself in my study when Candace comes sashaying in. For the first time ever, instead of lighting up when she comes in, I feel nausea at her presence. Why is she disturbing me when I'm busy? I instantly feel bad for thinking that and try to give her a smile, even though it feels forced. Candace, is there something you need? I ask pleasantly enough. I just thought I'd come to see you, she purrs and leans forward, giving me a glimpse of her rather generous cleavage. I swallow hard. My wolf is extremely annoyed in the background and I put a block up, ignoring his protests. Well, I'm always happy to see you, I lie. She's wearing a killer red dress that leaves nothing to the imagination and it enhances her beautiful figure perfectly. I have an idea of what it is she's after. She trails her fingers down my arm. To my surprise, I feel numb, not as excited as I usually am. Still, I stand up and kiss her, deep, disappointed not to feel any sparks or tingles. I just need to get winter out of my head, I think to myself grimly. Candace senses there's something wrong and pulls back, her eyes shining with concern. Love? You're a bit tense, she comments and I almost laugh. She's not kidding, I'm so stressed out, it's not funny. How about a massage? She offers and I sit back down with relief. At least she's not angry. Not that she has any reason to be, I think, a tad bit guilty. After all, that kiss meant nothing. Nothing. But my body and my wolf think otherwise. She begins to knead my neck and I tip my head back in appreciation, feeling my tense muscles begin to relax underneath her ministrations. This was heaven. I moan and she smiles widely at me. Poor thing, she comments sweetly, you're all tense and stressed out. I know exactly how to fix that, she murmurs and moves me from out of my desk, still in my chair as I face her. She knows exactly what to do, God, she's good. It's not long and I'm struggling to maintain my self-control, putting aside all thoughts of winter. This is my life, this is what I want. A girlfriend who's crazy about me. Who will never hurt me. Who shows me just how badly she wants me all the time. I can't take it anymore and hastily stand up. I think maybe it's time for you to have some fun too, I say firmly, and she gives me a knowing look, sliding out of her panties and flinging them to the far corner of the room. My throat goes dry. Bend over the desk, I growl, desperate to be inside of her. She bends over, her dress up to her waist, her hands on either side of her head. She waits. I stare at her, after we done. I slowly pull out and Candace turns to grip me tightly. I have some shopping to do, she murmurs and, without a word, I pull up my pants and hand her my credit card while she beams at me. Have fun, I manage to grunt as she puts her panties back on and waves, shimmying out. I watch her go regretfully. She had no idea that I was pretending to be with someone else, and I put my head in my hands and swore quietly. All I can think about is winter and the knowledge that she would have felt the pain of me being with someone else. I really am a right. Not only that, but I shamed Candace by imagining my mate beneath me. How was I going to fix this mess without hurting either of them? Was that even possible? Winter POV. I watched him walk away, feeling nothing but regret. I knew he wasn't happy that he'd kissed me, but it wasn't like I forced him to. I feel indignant now. My mind is still spinning from his kiss and the feel of his hands on me. The tingles and the sparks that flew between us, and my body already craves more. Still, even though I'm sure he had felt the same things I did, he almost ran out of the room like a bat out of hell. That stung like crazy. Was the kiss that bad? It's less than an hour later and I feel the most excruciating pain in my chest, one that has me doubling over and wheezing. I can't scream for help and I feel helpless, tears running down my face. I'd never felt this pain before, clawing at my chest as shouts rang out from the corridor, nurses and the doctor racing in, mystified for a moment, and then I hear the doctor order the nurses to leave. Sabriel, what's going on? What is this horrendous pain? It's because of our mate, she tells me sadly, and I can feel her anguish and despair. I'm confused though, by what she means. How is the pain linked to Kai? How is he managing to hurt me from far away? It didn't make sense. Mate is sleeping with someone else. Now that we've met him and he hasn't rejected us, we'll feel this every time he sleeps with another. He literally kissed me and then went and slept with Candace? God, what I thought furiously, trying to take deep breaths in the hope that the pain would go away. Nothing seems to help. I notice the doctor is setting up something on the floor and look at him questioningly. Please let it help the pain. I'd take anything to make it go away. It's morphine, he said quietly. It will dull the pain but won't take it away completely, he said, looking upset. Part of me is suspicious he knows exactly what the pain is and where it's coming from. He looks grim. It will help with your injuries as well, he adds. I gave him a thankful smile and he nodded. He looks at me regretfully. There's nothing more I can do, but the morphine is strong and may even put you to sleep. That would be a small mercy in itself, he murmured to himself, looking away. He leaves the room and sure enough, within a few minutes, the pain has subsided to a dull pain. It stings and the knowledge of my mate being with another has me in tears. Why can't he just reject me and let me move on? How would he feel, if I chose to go and sleep with another? It was humiliating. Sabriel was lost in the midst of her own despair. All we could do was try and comfort each other, the best way we could. I feel sleepy and settle back in bed. The pain might not be completely gone, but it's tolerable. I know they can't give me too much morphine, but at the moment I'm thankful to have it at all. It's even helping with the pain of my wounds. My eyes feel heavy and I feel like I'm floating in the air. It's surreal. Like an out-of-body experience. I gratefully go to sleep and feel no more pain as I do so. I can't say what woke me up. It could have been hunger. My stomach was growling rather loudly. Or it could have been, due to the change in lighting and realizing it was now late at night. I'm still dazed and confused from the morphine and my body is feeling strange. The pain of Kai being with someone else is gone, at least for now. I'm not so naive as to believe it won't happen again. But I can also swear I just saw a shadow move around in the room and then hear footsteps leaving before my eyes can adjust to the darkness. Was it a nurse? I think to myself. But then, why would the nurses have been doing their job in the darkness? Why not just turn the light on and wake me up? It seems silly to not disturb me, especially since it seems I've been out of it for most of the day and a portion of the nighttime. Why make their job harder? Why do I feel so uneasy? Like something is majorly wrong? I'm in a hospital, for heaven's sake, one of the safest places I can possibly be. I know it wasn't Kai in the room, I would have smelled his scent. In fact, I'm not really familiar with the scent in the room at all and I'm sure that it must belong to a nurse. They must have been doing some observations or something. But my body won't respond to any of my commands, feeling much like I'm paralyzed and my limbs refuse to move at all. That wasn't a nurse. Something's wrong. Winter, you have to move, I can't. My body won't do anything I want it to. If you don't, we will die. Your morphine is way too high. Rip the 4 out if you have to. I can't make my arms move. Or my legs, Sabriel. It's hard to feel anything. Do something and make it quick. What did Sabriel want me to do? I can't frigging call out, I can't move. No one knows what's just happened and by the time someone comes in it's going to be too late. As it is, I can feel my body becoming more languid and loose. I'm starting to panic now. Sabriel's just as concerned. I could barely take a breath and I gathered up all of my courage and all of my strength, rolling over and falling to the ground with a large thud. The 4 rips out in the process and blood pours out onto the floor. Ouch! But at least I've managed to make one hell of a racket. That should send the nurses to my room. Thank God, I've managed to do even that, but I'm still incredibly weak. Luckily, there's the sound of running footsteps and the doctor comes racing into the room, his hair disheveled and dark circles beneath his eyes. He looks like he's woken from a deep sleep. Was he watching over me or worried something would happen? Or was it because I was the alpha's mate and he didn't want to have to explain that something bad had happened? I don't care, right now all I want is for him to give me some medical attention. He takes one look at me and a fierce expression comes on his face. He knows instantly what's happened. He slowly bends over and picks me up, placing me onto the bed tenderly and ordering a nurse to fetch some bandages. The other nurses come pouring in and he turns on them, anger clear in his voice. Who messed with the morphine dosage? He roars, and even I flinch from how loud he is. It's a far cry from the quiet, gentle doctor I met earlier. The nurses looked confused. All of them are shaking their heads. Someone had to, or are you telling me that a stranger made their way into the room and did it while she was sleeping? Because Winter was asleep the last time I checked and I very much doubt she tried to kill herself, he roars. I'm shaking my head. No way, even with how messed up my situation is, would I try and kill myself. He has that right. But how did someone sneak in and out, without attracting any attention? Still, none of the nurses come forward and the doctor, James, looks exasperated. Until I find out who the culprit is, no one is allowed to enter this room under any circumstances. The nurses look annoyed but have no other option than to assent. He orders them out and turns to me, bandages in his hands. All right, Winter, let's take a look at that arm, he says. I'm shaking as I hold it out, finally getting feeling coming back into my limbs and body. He wraps the wounds and sighs. I'm going to have to inform Alpha Chi of what's happened. I look at him pleadingly, but he's stern. Great. Why does he even have to know? I think a little bitterly, it's not like Kai would care. Hell, if I'd died, I'd have been doing him a massive favor. It looks like you managed to rip the morphine drip out just in time, Dr. James says quietly, but I'm no longer comfortable, leaving you in this room by yourself. Sabriel agrees. He takes a key out of his coat and glances at me apologetically. If anything happens to you, Alpha Chi will have my head. I know it doesn't seem like it, but he does actually care for you, in his own misguided, stupid way, he adds, and I deflate. I disagree but watch anyway as Dr. James locks the hospital room. Now it makes sense as to why I've been put in a room with glass doors. At the time, I hadn't even considered there might have been a reason for it. I'm going to stay here with you, until morning, and then I'm going to speak to Alpha Chi about discharging you, he mutters, somewhere safe and away from here. He settles himself in the chair. Go back to sleep, he says, and I hesitate. But I know it wasn't him in the room earlier, his scent is far too different. Rest is what your body needs right now to recuperate, and you're safe for now. Don't worry. I've already mind-linked Alpha Chi, he adds reluctantly. I tentatively closed my eyes, still feeling quite from the morphine. Knowing Dr. James is with me makes me feel a lot more secure, and it's not long until I feel darkness surrounding me and fall into a deep sleep. Alpha Chi POV. It's the next day, and although I know I shouldn't, I find myself heading towards the Pack Hospital anyway. At least Candice isn't hanging around, wondering where I'm going. She's too busy going out and shopping. My wolf points that out rather sourly, but I ignore him. At least it keeps Candace away for a while. I really shouldn't feel like that, considering she's my girlfriend, but I can't help noticing I'm feeling that more and more these days. Was it because I'd found my mate, or was I getting tired of her? My wolf has made his opinion on numerous occasions, but why am I starting to agree with him? Why am I suddenly finding myself disliking Candace so much? What has changed? I walk through the front entrance confidently, seeking out Dr. James. I want to find out how Winter is going and whether there's a change in her condition. My mind flashes back to our kiss and I cringe. That was wrong of me and I would have to apologize. I don't want Winter to get the wrong idea. I'm a little mystified when I'm told by the head nurse at the nurses' station that Dr. James is currently locked up in Winter's room. I feel a spurt of rage. What is he doing in there, alone with my mate? My wolf is in agreement, growling lowly in my head. I almost stomped down to Winter's room and peered inside to see Dr. James sleeping rather uncomfortably in a chair, beside Winter's bedside. Well, at least he's not in her bed, not that I think my mate is capable of anything like that, even with what I'd done to her. I knock softly on the door, seeing Winter is still sleeping peacefully, her hair spread out on the pillows and neatly tucked underneath a blanket. His eyes open and he sits upright looking startled, before turning his head around and viewing me guiltily. I watch as Dr. James gingerly gets to his feet and tiptoes to the doors, unlocking them and quietly coming out into the hallway, where I'm waiting impatiently for him. I need to speak to you, rather urgently, Alpha Chi, he tells me and he sounds grim, like there's something serious he needs to tell me. I made a motion for him to walk with me but he shakes his head. I cannot leave Winter alone in her room, the doctor says reluctantly, and my eyebrows rise in surprise, even as I begin to feel a tiny bit suspicious. I should have paid better attention to what he tried to tell me last night. Then give me a moment to mind link Beta Langdon. He can come down and keep an eye on her, I say firmly, and did that, Langdon assuring me that he'll be a moment. The doctor looks grateful. Thank you Alpha Chi, he breathes. There's a good reason for needing someone outside of Winter's hospital room and I don't want to disturb her either while she's asleep, he adds. I'm in agreement. Part of me is happy she's asleep, it means prolonging the apology that I felt I owed her. We wait, I'm impatient, until Langdon finally turns up, looking breathless, as though he's run straight here. I eye the sweat on his clothes and surmised that he probably had run. Yes, Alpha Chi, he says, and I turn to him. Beta Langdon, I say quietly, keeping my voice low, I need you to keep an eye on Winter and don't let anyone besides yourself into her room. Is that understood? Dr. James speaks. That means no nurses, doctors, or anybody. Nobody should be stepping foot in her room at all. Langdon looks bewildered but nods. Of course, I'll keep a close eye on her, until your return, he tells me, and stations himself against the wall, his arms folded and a serious expression on his face. Thank God I had someone I could trust to have my back. Even with something as small as this. This way, Dr. James whispers and leads me to his office, closing the door securely behind him and motioning for me to take a seat. Winter is healing remarkably well, he started off with as I listened intently, glad to hear it. Her wounds are beginning to close and she's not in any pain right now. I don't know if you are aware, but she felt the pain of you being with someone else yesterday, he says, fixating his eyes on me. I feel a little indignant. How dare he scold me like that? I'm the alpha, but another part of me acknowledges the truth of his words and I feel ashamed of myself. I wriggle uncomfortably in the chair. I feel like a child in the headmaster's office. There's something else as well. Her body is covered in scars, Alpha Chi, old ones that were clearly made with silver. I didn't torture her, I say dumbly, and he looks at me exasperated. I'm aware, he says with a groan, but somebody has. It's been going on for years. I'm quietly taking that in, feeling anger rise inside of me, even though I know I can't do anything for her. Nothing can heal wounds made with silver. Dr. James takes a deep breath, and looks towards me apprehensively. I know he's been holding something back. We wouldn't have had to go to his office if all he wanted to tell me was to inform me about Winter's current condition. There was an incident last night, he tells me grimly. Someone entered Winter's hospital room and increased her morphine dosage. It was put incredibly high. If she hadn't managed to rip her four out, it could very well have been fatal. I exploded. He'd failed to mention the part about the morphine, instead stating that Winter had been involved in an incident and that he was taking care of her. I should have asked questions, I think to myself grimly. But then, the doctor probably assumed I didn't care much for Winter. Even though a small part of me does care for her. Your nurses must be incompetent, I raged, standing up and pacing back and forth. They put my mate's life in danger. How could they have made such a stupid mistake? I'm incredulous at the thought of such a huge mistake taking place under Dr. James's supervision. He holds up a hand to stop me. That's the thing, all of the nurses deny that they entered the room and messed with the dosage. All of them have been working for me for years and I believe them. None of them know that she's your mate, Alpha Chi. I've not disclosed that information to anyone. My eyes narrow as I realize what he's implying. You think she was targeted, because she's my mate? I ask angrily and he nods. I'm positive. The thing is, how many people know about her? I stop and think. Langdon, of course, knows, but so do several of the patrols that were on the night that Winter stumbled onto my territory. They wouldn't know we were mates, but I had been acting differently in her presence. Had someone maybe picked up on it? Overheard something they shouldn't have? Or was it just a lucky guess? I cursed and threw my hands up in the air. I feel a sense of frustration and concern. Winter wasn't safe in the hospital. Now what was I going to do? My wolf wanted to take her home with us, but it could have been anyone and there was no guarantee of her safety there, not to mention I didn't want Candace to find out about her, not yet anyway. That was a discussion to have with her another time, once I've made up my mind about what I wanted to do. What do you suggest? I asked the Dr. evenly as he thinks about it. I'm prepared to discharge her, but she still needs to rest. Is there someone you trust completely with Winter's care? Someone who can guard her and keep her safe from harm? Oh, I have someone all right, but I doubt he's going to be pleased with the plan that's swirling around in my mind. My wolf is annoyed that we aren't taking care of her and sulks. I ignore him. It's safe to discharge her. I confirmed and Dr. James nodded adamantly. So long as she rests, she'll be fine. I've got painkillers I can give her, but I think she'll probably manage without them. I take it you locked yourself in the room then to keep Winter safe, I commented dryly, and he blushed and looked at the ground. Forgive me, Alpha Chi, he stammers. I didn't know what else to do. Her safety was my #1 priority. I waved his apology away. In the grand scheme of things, I didn't blame him. He'd taken care of my mate and kept her safe, going well above and beyond his job. I was grateful to him, more than anything. Thank you for taking care of her, Dr. James. You have my thanks, I told him, standing up and walking to the door. Arrange for Winter's discharge and I'll organize the rest, I added grimly, walking back towards the hospital room and wondering if Winter had woken up yet. I knew instantly she wasn't going to like what I had in store for her, but there was no other choice, so she'd have to suck it up and deal with it. So would a certain someone else. I give a wicked grin. This was going to be very interesting. Winter POV. My eyes feel heavy and gritty as I blink them open, the light bright and the hospital sounding busy from what I can discern. I had apparently fallen asleep during the night while Dr. James watched over me. To my surprise though, he seemed to be gone and I wondered if he'd left to deal with a patient. He is a busy doctor after all and has to supervise his staff. Oh well, I thought to myself with a shrug. It was none of my business and it was morning anyway. I doubt anything's going to happen to me during the day. I take care of my business and look down at my hospital gown with a sigh. I don't have any other clothes to change into, so all I can do is grab a new one and have a quick shower, before walking back out and frowning. There's a man I recognize, well sort of, standing guard outside in the hallway, his head peeking in as he watches me. What's he doing here, I wonder? Had Dr. James told him to stand guard? Or was it someone else? He looks so serious as well though. What's up with that? I'm here to watch over you, he tells me gruffly, and I give him a nod and a small smile. Well, that's a relief, I guess, but I wonder who has given him the order to do that. Was it Dr. James or was it Alpha Chi? I suspect the latter even if I can't prove it. I felt a little flutter in my stomach at the thought that Alpha Chi might have come to visit me or that he cared enough to send one of his men to take care of me. It gives me a warm feeling, even if he hasn't accepted me yet, he still shows signs of caring. I would hold on to that as small as it might seem. I climb back into bed, shivering slightly from the cold and hastily pull my blankets back over me. The man is watching my every move, but he's also scanning his surroundings with his eyes. What kind of danger does he believe I might be in? I honestly think that last night was an accident, but I'm now seriously thinking that I'm wrong. Otherwise Dr. James wouldn't have reacted the way he had. It wasn't an accident, Winter, it was a deliberate attempt on your life. You have to be careful and don't trust anyone, especially not Alpha Chi. Sabriel, watch your language. I know that you don't particularly like Alpha Chi, but he is in a difficult position. After all, he has a girlfriend already. It must be hard for him. It's like he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Not really. He's just making it hard. Trust me, the mate bond is sacred. I still want to believe he'll come around. Of course he will. He's crazy not to want someone as incredible as you, Winter. I love you, Sabriel. Love you too, girlfriend. I smell the most delicious scent and inhale greedily. I know this smell, and would recognize it anywhere. It's Kai's and he's heading towards my hospital room. I can hear his footsteps as they approach and they sound angry, stomping, like he's majorly pissed off, and I cringe. Was he mad at me? I haven't done anything wrong though, I think to myself, slightly annoyed. The footsteps stop just outside of the door though, and I exhale in relief. Then I hear his voice muttering to the man who is watching me from outside. Langdon, Kai says firmly, I require your assistance with something. Whatever it is, I'm at your service. The man, who must be Langdon, said calmly. Good, because it's an unusual request. I frowned at that, wondering what kind of request Kai was going to make. Is Langdon perhaps his beta? It would make sense. It must be pretty important if he's asking his beta for something. I need you to take Winter in for now and keep watch over her. I hear a splutter and realize it's coming from poor Langdon, who obviously hadn't been expecting such an unusual request. I feel a little indignant as well. I didn't need anyone watching over me, I was perfectly fine with keeping myself safe. After all, I'd traveled a fair distance on my own and that hadn't been easy. Even as a mute. Alpha Kai, Langdon says slowly, once he's recovered from the initial shock, do you really believe I'm the best man for that job? Isn't there someone else you'd rather assign to this? There's no one else I trust. Someone tried to kill Winter last night. It could have been anyone. You're the only one I would trust wholeheartedly with my mate. Someone tried to kill her, gasps Langdon, and although I strain my ears, wanting to hear more, they drop their voices so low that I'm unable to hear any more of the conversation. Sabriel is excited that Kai's showing he cares for us. I'm confused as to why I'm being watched over by someone else if he cares so much. Then footsteps again and Kai comes bustling in, looking absolutely furious as I blink at him. Winter, he says gruffly as I sit upright and regard him warily. This is Langdon, he says, motioning to the other man who comes in and looks hesitantly at me. I want him to keep watch over you for now, he says grimly, and I just nod, looking down at my hands and feeling disappointed. He was handing me over to another man, instead of protecting me himself. It more than stung a little. He exhales, sensing my disappointment. It might be my imagination, but Kai also looks slightly guilty, fidgeting and moving from one foot to the other. About yesterday, he says finally, avoiding my eyes, and I felt myself instantly deflate, suspecting where this was going and not wanting to hear it. Please, I think to myself, please don't say the words I think you're about to say. I don't know if I can bear it. I should never have kissed you, like I did. I had no right, please forgive me, he adds, and I feel sick to my stomach. He's apologizing for the kiss, like it didn't mean anything to him, while it had meant so much more to me. I try to keep tears from forming in my eyes. Langdon looks around the room, looking distinctly uncomfortable, also not meeting my eyes. Clearly, he hadn't been privy to that information, because he also looked very surprised. Langdon, he says, addressing his beta, who snaps to attention, do not let Winter out of your sight for any reason. Langdon nodded, looking serious. I want to scream and am bitterly aware that I cannot. I'm here, I want to scream, right here, and I can hear everything. Talk to me. Kai looks at me and something flashes across his eyes, so quickly that I almost miss it. Was that concern? Or perhaps guilt? Winter, I want you to listen to Langdon. He's here to protect you and to keep you safe. Dr. James informed me as to what went on last night and I'm making sure nothing else happens. Until we can find the culprit, you'll be staying with Langdon. Well gee, thanks, I thought to myself sarcastically. I would hate to ruin his day. I know I'm being irrational, but he's making me absolutely furious, so much so, that my hands are slowly balling into fists. Alpha Kai, how long am I required to keep Winter with me? Asks Langdon unsurely. Kai's head whips around and he glares at Langdon, who gulps nervously. His eyes turned pitch black for a moment and I stared in fascination, wondering if his wolf was in control or if Langdon had just made him that angry. For as long as it takes, he thunders, and Langdon flinches. Yes, of course. Sorry Alpha Kai, he quickly mutters, and Kai just harumphs at him. Dr. James is discharging you, Winter, so Langdon, you're to take her to your place and wait for further instructions. If anything happens, inform me immediately, Kai snarls, and Langdon emphatically nods while I just stare at both of them in a rage. Do they not realize how condescending it is that they're talking about me as though I'm not even in the room? It was infuriating. I have to go, Alpha Kai says quietly as I stare at him, my eyes pleading for him to stay. He seems to hesitate. I have to go and talk to Candace, he murmurs, and my heart sinks. Of course he was going to his girlfriend. How stupid of me to think otherwise. After all, why would he choose to actually be mates with me, when he had someone like that wanting to be with him? I couldn't even compare to how beautiful that girl is. Langdon and I watch as Kai turns and leaves the room, his footsteps thudding loudly on the hospital floor. Langdon gives me a long considering look and I can't help it, my face crumples and my tears start to flow, making Langdon even more panicked as he attempts, rather futilely, to comfort me. Kai POV, I sighed and put my head in my hands. Winter's been entrusted to Langdon, so I should feel relieved, but if anything, I'm even more nervous. We haven't been able to find the culprit who deliberately increased Winter's morphine and tried to kill her. Nobody saw anything, which means the person responsible had to have been in and out of her room within seconds. It was infuriating not being able to get the information I required. As Alpha, it was my responsibility to find the person responsible. I wonder how Langdon's getting on. I know he wasn't pleased with me when I demanded that he take Winter in and become his ward, but what else am I supposed to do? It's not like I can take her in. I can't help but remember the look in her eyes when I apologized for kissing her. How hurt she looked, as though I'd betrayed her and the guilt was slowly eating me inside. Why had I done that? I could have just said nothing, instead of breaking her heart the way I had. God, I was such a fool. I've really sunk low. That's it, I can't keep myself back anymore. Winter's in Langdon's house right now, and I need to know exactly how she's doing. I mind link him, not caring how grumpy he sounds when he responds. I'm the Alpha, he does as I say. Besides, this was an emergency of sorts. What if she was in danger? I ignore the small voice in my head that reminds me that Langdon would mind link me if that was the case. Langdon, how is Winter going? Is she safe? Are you treating her well? He sounds irritated when he replies. Depends what you mean by how she's going. She's a right pain in the ass, if you ask me. Not that you care, you're the one who stuck her with me. My wolf gives a low growl at that. Remember who you are speaking to, Langdon. Don't piss me off right now. He sighs. I apologize, Alpha. But ever since we've come back here from the hospital, she hasn't done much. She's just moping around and looking bored. Nothing I do seems to spark any interest in her. It doesn't help that she cannot speak at all. I've provided her with paper and pen, but she doesn't want to write unless I ask her some sort of question. She seems to be severely depressed. I flinch at that. I have the feeling that I'm responsible for that. Are you saying she's being difficult on purpose? Or is she upset? If she is upset, I know it's because of what Forey done. It would have nothing whatsoever to do with Langdon, especially since he was only following my orders. It's more like she's given up. I don't know how else to describe it. She's just not happy. I think you might have broken her when you apologized for kissing her. She hasn't even smiled once since she's been here. Ouch. It sounds really bad now. But what could I do to make things any better? Is she taking care of herself at all? Eating, sleeping, all of that? No, Alpha Kai. She has barely touched a thing and hasn't been sleeping well at all. If I didn't know any better, I would say she was having nightmares. She gets up at night and just wanders through the house, eventually passing out on the couch. She won't let me put her back to bed either, seems to prefer sleeping out there instead. I really don't like the sound of that. What could she possibly be having nightmares about, that would make her prefer to walk until she collapsed exhausted on the couch? My wolf is also in agreement, his concern almost overwhelming for our mate. I resist the urge to go out there and check up on her, although my resistance seems to be weakening when it comes to Winter. Has she confided in you at all? No, Alpha. She hasn't attempted to communicate with me much at all, even though I've provided the necessary stuff, pens and paper and whatever else she needs. She's just not interested in anything. Perhaps it would be best if you took her in instead? I hesitate. It does sound like Winter isn't doing well, but then, I still have Candace to contend with. Besides, Winter wouldn't want to be with me anyway. At least I assume she wouldn't. I trace the scars on my face thoughtfully. If I just rejected her, she would be free to leave, but my wolf howls at the thought and begins to furiously threaten me, calling me all sorts of vile insults. Not only that, but he begins to berate me over Candace, calling her a gold digger and a hussy, not worthy of us and a bimbo. He was not holding back. Then again, when it came to Candace, he never did. Plus, I don't want to reject Winter, as it is I've started daydreaming what it would be like to be with her instead of Candace, another bad sign. If the situation doesn't resolve itself soon, in the next few days, I'll consider moving her elsewhere. Do you think she would be more comfortable living with a female member of the pack? I can tell that Langdon is mulling that over. It never occurred to me that Winter might possibly not want to be living with a male, but there's really no females that I trust completely to take care of my mate. There is no way I'd even consider having her close to Candace. That was a sure way for a recipe for disaster. Plus Candace gets jealous when another female so much as looks at me too long. I don't know. It's entirely possible that she would be more at ease in a female's company. She could be afraid of men, for all we know. I frown. I thought this would have been the perfect solution and now I was going to have to think of something else. I don't want Winter to be completely miserable. That's not fair to her. Then again, was any of this current situation fair to her? My wolf didn't think so. My heart is screaming out to take her in, to do what's right, and even my wolf won't let up. I'm forced to put a block up rather than continue listening to him rage and vent at me. Continue to inform me of her condition. If she continues to deteriorate or show signs of starving herself, then I'll take her out of your custody. In the meantime, think of someone we can entrust her care to. Which female member of our pack do you trust implicitly with something as important as taking care of my mate? That's a tough one, Alpha Chi, but I'll do my best to think of someone. Give me some time to think about it. I can't think of anyone on the top of my head, but it will come to me. Just wait and see. Take all the time you need, Langdon. That's all I need to hear right now. Thank you for your report. I cut off the mind link and groaned out loud. I hope Winter's not being difficult because she's mad at me, but another part of me is worried that I've completely broken her heart. A small part of me is whispering that I should go and see her for myself, but another part of me is desperately ignoring that voice, saying that Candace is more of a priority. But why? For the first time ever, I find myself questioning why I'm continuing to see Candace when I had a real-life mate right in my grasp. Was all of this worth it? Was Candace worth holding onto? She's been loyal, that part's true. But she's also had her eyes on being Luna right from the beginning. In fact, even now as I think about it, I can't think of a single thing that Candace has done for myself in the relationship, that doesn't include X. Have I been a fool and been swayed by the fact that she's been one of the only women wanting to be with me and willing to look past my scars? Was I letting my fears hold myself back from finding true happiness? Was my unwillingness to be vulnerable ever again ruining any chance I have of having a relatively normal life and a family of my own? Maybe it is time to seriously ponder the possibilities and what I want in my future. Because if I'm forced to be entirely honest to myself, I didn't see Candace as my future wife. In fact, I never have seen her in that role. But when I picture Winter, I can clearly see her in a wedding dress, looking beautiful as she walks down the aisle. My stomach churns and my head begins to hurt. Then there's a knock on the door and I shudder, knowing instinctively just who is on the other side, the last person I want to see, let alone talk to right now. Why did she have to come and interrupt me right now, while I was feeling like this? Damian POV. It's been months since Winter has been gone and I've gotten myself a regular job in a cafe as a barista of all things. Can you imagine that? I never would have thought I would have to be as responsible as I now am, taking care of the bills and still going to school at the same time. Is this how Winter had felt every day when she had done all the household chores and responsibilities? Thanks. Have a good one, one of my regulars yelled out as they left, the last customer of the night, and I closed the door gratefully and locked it. Now all I have to do is clean up and I'm done for the night. It doesn't take long, I've got myself into a regular routine and before I know it, I've put my coat on and ducked out the door. Brrr, it's slightly cold and I shiver, putting my hands in my pockets. I walk home slowly. It's otherwise a beautiful night and the stars are twinkling overhead. I don't bother to use the car anymore. Not when I can avoid it anyway. Walking saves gas and means I have more money to take care of the bills. Besides, it's not like home is that far away and I'm not frightened that someone's going to jump me. I'm a shifter for heaven's sake, not to mention, the town is mainly made up of pack members and shifters. I stared at my house, feeling strangely hesitant. It looks so uninviting and cold. Then again, it's felt that way since winter's been gone. I never really saw just how having my little sister around made the house feel more like a home. I miss her laughter and her smiles, even if her smiles were rare and few and far between. I miss winter. I miss my little sister, more than I ever thought possible. I unlocked the door and put my keys away in the entrance hall, turning on the lights. It might seem silly, but I hate that the house is dark when I get home. I really should remember to at least leave the front porch light on, but it always seems to slip my mind. Sigh, the refrigerator is practically empty. I'll have to go grocery shopping tomorrow. My stomach growls. Damn, I'm hungry. Then it hits me. There's a scent in the house and it doesn't belong to me. It's not winter's either. It's also frighteningly familiar, although I can't quite place it. It's definitely not father's, I'd know the smell of that anywhere. It seems to be throughout the entire house. Has someone broken in while I've been working? But nothing appears to have been stolen. Then again, it's not like there's anything worth stealing in this house anyway. I sniffed and began to do a methodical search of the rooms, my body tensed and poised to fight. But there was no one there. The smell is faint, like it's been several hours since whoever it belongs to has been here, but there is one more place that I have yet to check and I'm not looking forward to it. But the basement needs to be checked and I'm not going to shy away like a coward. But why is this scent so familiar to me? It's like I've smelt this scent before, but I can't for the life of me think who it might belong to. The smell is stronger as I approach the door leading down to the basement and I give a grin. If the person is still down there, they are in for one hell of a beating. I opened the door cautiously and began my descent down the stairs, listening for any signs of a person waiting to ambush me, the smell getting increasingly stronger. I have no doubt that there's someone waiting down here for me and my eyes continually scan my surroundings. My whole body is tense, ready to shift at a second's notice in order to protect myself. Where are you? I think fiercely to myself, prepared to shift at a second's notice. I reach the bottom of the stairs and begin to move forward, ears pricked for the tiniest of sounds. The basement is dark and I curse the fact that I've never gotten around to replacing the light globe that's no longer working. Some light would be really useful right about now. I'm cautious, moving around the various bits of junk and furniture that's piled haphazardly all over the place. The basement's been used primarily for a junk room over the years, but it also contains one other thing that makes me sick to my stomach as I stare at it. The cage, or more accurately a cell, stands in one corner, made of silver with shackles and restraints against the wall, to keep someone immobile and unable to move. A cell, that I remember with remorse, Winter was often placed in and locked up for what father deemed as misbehavior. Even now, I can still remember her screams as she pleaded to be let out. The crying. God, my stomach churns to look at it and I resolve to get rid of the cell as soon as humanly possible. There's nothing but bad energy down here and it's like it sucks all the happiness out of you. The sound of footsteps rushing towards me, has my body turning, but too little too late as I feel a sharp pinprick in my thigh. I fall, my knees buckling to the ground, feeling strange, my body almost paralyzed. What have I been dosed with? How could I have been so stupid and let my guard down, even for a moment? What is it that this person wants from me? They'd been hiding in the shadows, awaiting the perfect opportunity to strike, and I'd given it to them. I'd let myself be distracted by the cell and gotten lost in my memories. How stupid could I be? My head feels like it's spinning and becoming hazy as I drop to a lying down position on the hard concrete floor. My body refuses to move, let alone shift, and it's now that I realize I'm unable to hear my wolf at all. That meant only one thing. I've been dosed with wolfsbane. Who are you? I managed to mutter, my throat seizing. The footsteps are slower now and the person comes right around to my front, giving me a perfect view of them. My eyes widened in horror. I must be imagining things surely. The wolfsbane must be playing havoc with my mind. That's the only logical explanation I can think of, as they bend over me. They're not real, this is just a dream of some sort. I'm hallucinating. This wasn't possible at all. Had I been drugged back at the diner? Had someone put something in one of my drinks? Because this can't be happening. My eyes are feeling heavy now and I'm struggling to keep them open. The person chuckles down at me as I flinch. The person sounds real, but do they feel real? The prick in my leg had felt real enough. Well, now he murmurs, it looks like you're in a bit of a sticky situation now, aren't you, Damian? He says with a smirk. He's getting blurry now, but the voice is exactly how I remember him. How is he here? Why is he here and what is it that he wants? Oh God, is he after winter? Darkness surrounds me and I succumb to it, passing out completely unconscious and left to this person's mercy. How is he still alive and what does he want from me after all this time? Damian POV. I wake up, my eyes feeling gritty and my throat parched. My whole body feels warm all over and there's a distinct ache that I can feel throughout all of my muscles. I can also feel my flesh burning as I open my eyes, seeing straight away that I'm restrained and shackled in the cell that poor Winter used to be punished in. I'm in trouble. What was going on? Then I remember and suck in a shocked breath, still unable to believe it myself, but knowing that I had seen it with my very own eyes. I struggle against the restraints but am not surprised when they don't budge, the burning of the flesh making me howl. It's pointless, his voice says as he comes out from the shadows, a massive smirk on his damn face. I hiss and he just smiles wider, enjoying my predicament. You, I gasp, tugging on the restraints and cursing, how is this possible? I thought you were dead, I hiss, and he laughed, the sound filling the silent room and sending chills down my spine. He's clearly enjoying himself right now. That's what I wanted all of you to believe. It took a while for me to recover and it served my purpose for everyone to think I had perished. It allowed me to plan my revenge and my next move. He almost purrs as I spit at him in defiance. I don't know why Thomas is here, but something tells me it's because of Winter and nothing to do with me. Plus he smells funny, like he's not just a shifter anymore. In fact, it's almost like he's a hybrid. But how is that possible? What did you do? I breathe, feeling sick. How is it possible you are here? He moves his head at me. Funny, I would have thought you'd know what a vampire smells like now. It's wonderful, he adds quietly. My parents tracked down a vampire and had me drink their blood to stay alive. Now I'm a hybrid, he whispers as I shudder, and I enjoy it. It was worth the months of pain as I went through the transition. You would have thought it would be quick and painless, but that's all a lie. Not to mention not everyone survives the process of becoming a hybrid. I got lucky. Picture the speed I possess and the ability to heal even quicker. Sadly, I'm not a full vampire, but drinking the blood healed me far quicker than being a shifter would have. I guess money really can buy everything, he adds thoughtfully. I even have a perfume that will hide the vampire scent from other shifters. I just don't see the point applying it right now. You're going to die anyway. He holds up a silver dagger, his hands clad in leather gloves, and I gulp, eyeing it nervously. His grin grows wider. What do you want? I spit out, wishing I could lay my hands on him. Isn't it obvious? He growls. I want to know where your sister Winter is, Damian, and you're going to tell me everything, he whispers threateningly. So I was right then, he wanted my sister and I'm just a means of getting information to him. As if I'm going to give my sister up after everything he'd put her through. He's a monster. I don't know where she is, I hedged, not exactly lying. She could be freaking anywhere by now, it has been several months now after all. He looks displeased and comes closer, touching the blade and waving it around. Without warning, he plunges it into my thigh and I give a loud howl, my skin burning, red-hot fire running through my veins. It hurts and I wriggle around, trying to dislodge the thing, with no success. God, it hurts, it's excruciating, and it takes all my self-control not to scream and give the satisfaction of hearing it. He pulls it out and it makes a sickening slurping sound as it leaves my body. I slump in relief. But it's short-lived. Where's Winter? He breathes. I've missed her, you know. Sweet little thing that she is. I feel bile rise up in my throat. After everything, he still wants her. He's out of his mind or delusional, or both. Either way, he's a serious threat to her. I don't know, I spit at him and he sighed. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Damian. You know it hurts me to have to do this to a close friend of mine, but you're leaving me no other choice. He plunges the blade into my ribcage and pulls it down as I scream, my bones cracking as he pulls it out, blood trickling down my side and onto the floor. I curse at him vehemently and he just stands there, his eyebrows raised, waiting for me to finish yelling obscenities at him. I yelled at him. His eyes narrow and he glares at me. This can all end now. Don't pretend you give a damn about your little sister after all this time, Damian. I can remember everything you did to her when you bullied her. Not to mention, this cell or cage was hardly made for you, was it? You put Winter in here, so don't act all high and mighty with me. You're just as much as a monster as I am. The difference is I can admit it. Damn him for being right. He glances over at the nearby trolley of implements and puts the dagger down, grabbing a whip with silver studs instead, examining it carefully. I bet you used all of these on Winter, didn't you? He whispered, and I bet she screamed every time. Now tell me where she is, he snarled, and I shook my head. Crack. I feel the whip as it hits me directly across the chest, the silver studs digging in and ripping flesh out as he pulls it back. It hurts. I scream as he hits me over and over again, the whips leaving large gouges and scratches all over me, blood pouring out of all of the various wounds. I'm panting, trying to keep conscious and bitterly aware that, at this rate, I'm not going to be able to keep myself awake much longer. He finally stops and I choke, spluttering and trying to get my breath back. I can feel myself weakening. I can do this all night if I have to, Thomas says pleasantly, as I flinch. He's not bluffing. Even I know that, and there's no one who's going to check on me and find me down here. I'm literally FK. He brutally kicks me and I scream as I feel the bones break in my leg, cracking, the pain shooting upwards as I swear and scream, panting heavily as I glare at him. My whole body is in excruciating pain, I'm trembling against the wall and can't move a muscle, limp in my restraints now. Do I need to keep going? Thomas asks, and I can't withstand the pain anymore. Call me a coward, but there's not much else I can do. If he continues, I'm going to die by his hands. Besides, winter is most likely far out of his reach by now, or at least that's what I'm hoping. Stop, I heave, just stop. He moves his head at me and smiles smugly. He knows he has me right where he wants me, his eyes are gleaming in satisfaction. Where is she? He demands, and I'm astonished that he has no idea that she's been gone for months. Had he literally come here, straight from his recovery? Or his hiding out and waiting for the right time to strike? Why was he striking now? What had changed that made him go looking for her? Gone, I coughed out, blood spraying on the floor. What do you mean gone? He asks, annoyed. She's been gone for months, I say miserably, had enough of all the bullying and everything else and up and left. He looks pissed. Where would she go? He says irritably, and I stare down at the floor, everything going blurry now. I don't know. She wanted to find a pack to call home, I coughed out, that's all I know. He moves closer and leans in to whisper into my ear as I shudder, you had better be telling the truth, Damian, because otherwise, I'm coming back to finish your story, and that's a promise. I'm not, I wheezed and apologized profusely to Winter in my mind. The second I get out of here, I'm going to be searching for Winter and, with luck, I'll get to her first. That's if I live to tell the tale, that is. He kicks me in the gut as I cough blood, stepping back and sighing. There's no point killing you, not when you'll just die down here on your own anyway, he says as I can barely look at him, the room beginning to spin. He began to walk away, a thoughtful look on his face. I bet she went south, he muttered to himself. There's a lot more packs to travel to in that direction. He turns and regards me from the bottom of the stairs. Good luck, he smirks, you're going to need it. At least I know you can't warn Winter. She was always too poor to have a cell phone, wasn't she? He grins. I shakily give him the finger as he chuckles and begins to ascend the stairs, every footstep like a dagger in my heart. Soon enough, he's gone and I finally close my eyes, my body hurting all over, and gratefully succumb to the darkness which surrounds me and embraces me. Jonathan POV, I scowl. It's been only one day, but even I've noticed that Damian didn't make it to school today. Normally, I would shrug it off, but since Winter's been gone, Damian has attended school without fail, as well as doing that job of his afterwards. Either he's sick and I'm being paranoid or something has happened to him. I suspect it's the latter, because that's what my gut is saying to me. I impatiently wait for school to finish, the ticking of the clock driving me insane. As an alpha, I can just get up and leave, and nobody would dare to stop me. But as a son with a scary mother, it's wiser to just wait rather than deal with something horrendous later. My mother scares everyone when she's angry. Thank God. The final bell rings and I peel out of there, getting hurriedly into my car, and ignoring the girls who continually try to swarm me. Jessica, in particular, has been nothing but annoying and almost throwing herself into my path. No matter how much I tell her that I'm not interested, it's like she thinks I'm playing hard to get instead. I shudder. As if I would want her lips anywhere near mine. Damian's house isn't far and it looks dilapidated from the outside. It's certainly in shoddy shape and that's putting things kindly. I frown. I never realized just what bad a shape his place was in. The door is locked and I rattle it, knocking on the door. There's no answer and I sigh. But I'm positive that I can smell his scent, it's quite strong in fact, so it would make sense that he was in there. I ponder what to do and then shrug. I could worry about the damage later. I pick up a rather large rock and break a window in the living room, using my elbow to push out the stubborn bits that still clung there. At least now I can get in. Damian can curse at me later for what I've done. Damian, I call softly, but there was no reply. I glance around. The kitchen is empty and all the lights are off. I sniff. His scent is strong and permeating throughout the entire house. Still, it seemed to be more pungent towards a certain door and I opened it, seeing stairs descending into a dark room. The basement. I tread lightly, my body tense, prepared for an attack, but nothing happened. Bile rises in my throat as I smell the metallic scent of blood, both old and new. Something has happened down here. I have to move past bits of furniture and various piles of junk to get towards the source of the smell, and once I'm there, I halt in my tracks, unable to believe what I'm seeing with my own eyes. My heart gives a jolt. Damian is shackled to the wall inside a large cell, his body slumped and there is blood, so much blood everywhere, a lot of it dried on his body. Someone's bleeded the living out of him. I raced to the cage and it was unlocked. I ignore the burning of my flesh as I rip the door open and rush inside. I can see his chest moving, slowly, so he's still alive, thank God, but barely. I need a key for the shackles and restraints. Damian's head is slumped and I gently tap it, hearing him moan as his eyelids fluttered open. Damian, where's the key? I ask urgently and he blinks at me, still confused and disorientated. Kitchen, pantry, hook, he rasped out, and I raced upstairs and located the key exactly where he said, hanging on a hook in the kitchen pantry. Seconds later, I'm cursing and undoing the restraints etc. while my flesh burns. Unfortunately, Damian drops to the ground and I fail to catch him. He moans. I rolled him over so that he faces me. I can tell he's been stabbed multiple times and whipped as well. Damian, I whisper, who did this to you? He stays silent and I wonder if it was just a random attack. But his eyelids flutter and then I hear his voice. Thomas, he moans, and I stop cold. I must have misheard him surely? Maybe he was thinking about Thomas, but it couldn't have actually been him, because Thomas was dead, everyone knew that. Who? I asked again as his face turned towards me, ashen and drained of color. "Thomas," he whispers hoarsely, and I flinch. "No, that can't be." "Thomas is dead," I said firmly, but he shook his head. "Not dead," he rasps, "alive. He's a hybrid now, half shifter, half vampire. I saw it with my own eyes. Hybrids are dangerous creatures and shifters and vampires are the two strongest races in the world. I'm amazed that he survived the transition, most attempting to become hybrids don't. I can't believe Thomas risked it, but it explains why Thomas is still alive. He struggled to sit upright and I helped him, panting heavily from the exertion. Now that he's no longer touching the silver, his wounds are slowly starting to heal in front of my eyes. "Thomas is alive," he tells me in a slightly stronger voice as I blink at him astonished. "How was this even possible? What does he want?" I ask, but part of me suspects that I already know the answer, feeling sick to my stomach. "Winter," answers Damian, and bile rises in my throat. I had thought that this had all been put to rest, that Thomas was no longer a threat to Winter. She believed him to be dead. She had no way of knowing he was still alive and out to get her. She was in danger and she didn't even know it. I swear, punching the wall in a fury while Damian chuckles lowly behind me. "He's already gone after her," he says bitterly, "has at least a day's head start. He won't rest until he finds her." He exhales, placing a hand to his side and wincing in pain. "I need to take you to the hospital," I tell him, but he shakes his head. "There's no time for that. I'm going after him. Either I take him out, or I find Winter so that I can warn her." His voice is resolute. There is no arguing with him, not when it sounds that final. "Why didn't you mind link me?" I ask. "He injected me with wolfsbane, so I couldn't. It's barely worn off yet." I don't blame him for wanting to protect his sister. But if Thomas is this determined and this crazy to find Winter, it would be suicidal to go on his own. He wouldn't stand a chance if he came across a group of rogues during his travels. I run a hand through my hair in frustration. I'm not about to let Thomas get his hands on Winter either. She might no longer be my mate, but she was a kind and loving person, who deserved far better than to have Thomas try and take off with her. Besides, part of me really wants to know if she's alright and if she's found a pack to call home. This was my chance. If only to make sure she's happy. Besides, I can't just stand around knowing she's in danger. Not when I can help save her. I look at Damian grimly. "Fine, but I'm going with you," I said, helping him to his feet as he stumbled awkwardly. "I can't ask you," he protests weakly, and I wave it away. "You're not asking me, I'm telling you," I snapped, and he grinned, his eyes lighting up with fervor. "Let's go then," he says, and I roll my eyes. "We need supplies, clothes, and food. Medical items," I say pointedly, and he swears, vehemently. I merely stare at him and wait until he grudgingly agrees. For a man that's wounded, you would think he'd realize that medical supplies were a necessity, for Christ's sake. I get my own clothes delivered to me and sort out the rest. Within an hour, both of us are ready to go on foot so that we can travel as wolves and be inconspicuous. Besides, I doubt Thomas is driving, especially given his state of mind. I walked into the forest, Damian close on my heels. I pray we get to Winter first or come across Thomas, because if we don't, there's a high chance that this time, she won't survive her meeting with him. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.